everyone, and welcome to This Is Why We Fight. Got a fantastic show for you this evening on Let's Talk About. I'm Jo.
I'm Boudica.
And I'm Andrew.
Hello. Oh, brilliant. No one's here. So let's just talk among ourselves. Oh, there we go. Will save the day. Good evening, Will. Good evening, Philomena. Well, I can't believe we beat everyone this evening. So we've got loads to talk about. We want to talk about a number of things. I think, though, we're going to let's start with Boris, shall we, and get that one out of the way. Axiom Curb community, hello to you. And Tash is here. Boris Johnson basically told everyone after a year and a half of absolute nightmare for business owners and people with jobs and people trying to make ends meet, has told them to stop relying on the state and be more self-sufficient. I find that truly amazing. What do you think? Let's ask the chat. What do you think? And let's ask Boudica and Andrew, what do you think is going on here?
Well, it's just more demoralisation. It takes everything away, it destroys everything, then says, well, you should be more self-sufficient.
Yeah, it's genuinely annoying that it's kind of like they're baiting us. They're trying to provoke. I don't know what they're trying to provoke, but it won't end well for us because the media have probably already written up those headlines. Just to say a couple more hellos. Phyllis Bear is here. My stepdad's not mean. There's no Jordan tonight for anyone who missed the start of the show. Not sure where he is. No, I can't lie to you. He's double booked himself. Bit of a wally. So there you go. There you go. I know it's going to give Jordan grief. That's the meanest I can be. Bless him. So who else is here? Bit of a wally. Sorry, Jordan. I hope you hear this, though, because it's just funny. A reboot needed is here. Good evening. That'll be Jordan's name now. Forget Jordank. It'll be a bit of a wally. Phyllis Bear's enjoying the Muttley laugh. Yeah, you're going to have to do your own Muttley laughs this evening because we've got no Jordan. Oh, dear. I'm sure we'll manage. Anyway, yes. So getting back to the question of Boris. Boris the buffoon, aptly named. Boudica, obviously you're in a different country to us. And I know things are not going terribly well there. Do you think they are trying to provoke some kind of response from the masses, I suppose? Like, do you think they want people totally demoralised, but also lashing out so they can use it against us?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll talk to you about that in a second. I just need a minute. Sorry.
Okay, no worries at all.
I can jump in on there.
Please do.
I think they're really trying to gaslight people, make it so that they're both angry and depressed, that they don't know what to do. They just end up freezing, and just can't fight back. Maybe they end up drinking themselves to death or something horrific like that because they just can't process it all.
I do agree with that. I mean, we are by nature problem solvers, and as everyone knows, it's far easier to deal with a problem and resolve it or deal with it somehow and then move on to the next. Axiom Curb community has just left a really interesting comment. It says, hello to all the chat. Also, Build Back Better principle. They use hey, it's obvious there's destruction somewhere. All makes it easier for the central banks to sweep in and buy it all with algorithms. I do agree with you. I do think that it's an overload, isn't it? It's a sense overload. There are so many problems. How can we possibly overcome all of them? And that is the key to demoralisation, to make you think that it's completely hopeless.
Well, it's shock and awe. You hit the enemy so hard in so many different positions that they just don't know where to respond.
Yeah,
they just shut down. That's basically what they're doing. If you think about all the different areas that they're fighting, either they're attacking us at, not just with the COVID, but with with the financial system, the buying up of houses, the food supply, all of this this absolutely crazy topsy-turvy propaganda.
Yeah.
It is so much that it's unsurprising that some people just can't handle it.
It's
Okay, I'm
interesting.
back too.
Oh, good. You want before you jump in, Boudica, let me just I want to keep up with the chat. Quick hello to Xanth. Good evening. Johnny is here. Good evening. Sir Francis is here. I wonder if you got late notifications. I'm not sure. But it's very good to have you here. Let's just catch up. One Easy Money is here. Good evening to you. Oh, there's my phone because I didn't put it on silent. So professional. Philomena. Daffod is here. Says, bloody hell, it's Friday. Yes, it is, Daffod. Welcome aboard. Okay, Boudica, back to you.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, we see a lot of that here too. Just the unending stream of negativity and fear mongering and I mean, just division as well. Like there is very much a campaign to divide, those who have taken a certain something and those who haven't. And it's getting stronger and stronger every day. And I mean, we just had this snap general election that's been called, that's in a couple of weeks, that nobody wants. And I mean, I guess the silver lining to that is we might get rid of Trudeau. I doubt it, but
Yay!
but yeah, it's the same agenda, the same programming that I think we're all seeing, regardless of where we're living.
Yes.
And I mean, so many people are giving into the fear, and it's overwhelming and it's frustrating. I mean, we all see news articles every day about different things, and it's infuriating, and we all get frustrated with it. But, at least we're open, our eyes are open to the agenda. And for those whose eyes aren't open, I can absolutely see, and just making people live in this constant.
Oh, I think we lost you. Are you still there?
Fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Can you not hear me?
You just cut out for a moment, but then you came back in, so it kind of overlapped.
Oh, okay.
I absolutely agree with what you said, and I think a quick hello to, I'm not sure if it's Dillich or Dilwich, however you pronounce that, but good evening to you. I was going to say it's akin to children, and you remove their emotional crutch. So all of the things that people used to rely on, like always having food on the shelves, like your post would come, like there'd always be sufficient goods to buy, like the government would take care of you, like scientists could be trusted, like the education system was actually good for you. All of these things are being ripped away. It's like the veil is being removed one thing at a time. And I think people's coping mechanisms are just not able to, they can't adjust, I think, to the new normal, this new normal they keep promoting.
Well, I think it's also, we have been I'm going to say this word wrong, infantilized.
Correct?
Is that right? Yeah, okay. That's how we've been treated for a really long time. It's not just, our children or our young people today. It's us, it's our parents' generation, it's our grandparents to a certain degree. For the last better part of a century, we've had this dumbing down, this infantilization of our collective intelligence, to the point where people really can't, as a collective, have critical thinking skills. We don't have that anymore for the most part. We can't, most people can't look at a situation or a piece of information that comes from the news or the government and look at it critically and ask questions about, why is this the way it is? Why are they saying what they're saying? Where are they getting their information? Is there other information? Like, there's a lot of these critical thinking skills that just don't exist collectively in any of our countries anymore. And I think that's been done on purpose, and it's been done slowly over a long period of time, so that what we're seeing now, this effective collapse of a lot of our institutions, we don't question it. You know, if this had happened, 70 years ago, 50 years ago, there would have been a lot more questions. There would have been a lot more hesitation. There would have been a lot more resistance in the initial stages, and it wouldn't have reached this level.
I agree.
I don't think.
I'd also like
to
add that because there's been so much previous certainties that have been undermined by all of this propaganda over the years, but certainly in the last 18 months, people have become very malleable, and they've almost sought out this this certainty from the authority figure of the state.
Yeah. So
they bend the knee, hoping that the state will protect them.
Well, you could argue that's the same point for BLM. I want to get eaten last, right? That if you somehow cuck to these mandates, to these aggressive movements or aggressive policies, that you will be seen as somewhat of a collaborator, and you will be safer than everyone else. Or at least if there is a danger, you will be at the back of the queue for it, which is, in my opinion, very cowardly, because people need to stand for their principles. If your principles are so easily given away, you didn't have any in the first place. But I do agree with what both of you have said, that people, I don't think we teach children to deal with adversity, and we don't teach them to be tenacious anymore. We don't teach them to question or seek solutions to fix things on their own. And it's just by the nature of society, modern society, when something breaks, you call someone. It's convenient and it's easy. Someone else has the knowledge. So why would you ever bother to learn it? And someone comes to fix your plumbing or your boiler or something. You don't stand there and learn from them. You just carry on doing what you're doing. They do the job, you pay them, and they go home.
But that sort of thing is by design. If you can make people dependent on other people, they're not only dependent for that specific thing, but they're also mentally dependent.
Yeah.
They become disempowered.
Yes.
So little things like being able to grow a little bit of food, you start to get a bit of independence, a bit of freedom, and you start to understand what is possible, which of course is exactly the opposite of what the state wants.
They've made everything so frightening as well. That you need a degree to do this.
Yeah.
In most cases, it's absolute rubbish. Let me tell you something. As a food noob, which I was last year, in fact, before we started doing these streams, I wasn't very capable at all. And I'm quite embarrassed to say this. I didn't have the kind of parenting where I was shown how to do things, like baking bread, for instance. I've literally just learned to bake bread. All my life, I didn't bother because it was always available. Things like growing food seems awfully scary because you think, well, you must be an expert to do this. It's just not true. Practice, practice, practice. That's all you need to do. God, sorry.
Sorry. I was going to say it's what I call the expert class. It's like the new priest class or the new aristocracy. It's this notion that you must consult an expert.
Yeah,
in
the prophets
anything.
of doom.
Yeah, and if you don't have the word or the backing or the knowledge or the peer-reviewed papers that are written by the experts, then the knowledge that you have or the knowledge that you have sought out on your own is completely worthless.
Yeah.
Which is not true. My example with this one is soap. Okay, we all use it every day. It's an important part of hygiene.
Well,
but there's this notion
rebellion.
But the thing is soap, anybody can make it. I've made it, anybody can make it. But there's this notion that you must be an expert and have a factory to do it.
I agree. I've made soap at home. It's aside from obviously accruing the ingredients, it's so easy. It's so simple, and there are videos everywhere teaching you how to do these things. And these aren't experts. These are people who tried it, found that they were pretty good at it, and they're sharing that information. All this so-called expertise, and it's like if you don't have the relevant qualifications, as you said, then your opinion and your experience can just be dismissed. But that's rubbish. We never used to rely on this stuff. We didn't have degrees in the past. Your local handyman didn't have degrees in plumbing and pipe fitting and electrical work. It was just someone with a wealth of experience. And you trusted them because they were physically doing the job that you were hiring them to do. You didn't ask to see a certificate of qualification. We'd started to trust the wrong things a long time ago, and we need to turn that back around. We really do. Just a quick hello to Mike in Colchester. Hello, thank you for joining us. Johnny Red Pill Seed, I did put a comment up, but hello to you. Couple of false prophet, says Johnny Red Pill Seed. Zant says they are treating everyone like dumb sheep and too many go along with it because they think they'll keep their quiet life. Well, this is the other thing, isn't it? This is about an easy life for many people. Johnny D now says, oh my God, I couldn't have said that any better, Boudica. No critical thinking or questioning of what they're told. So true. Philomena says, thank you for lemons and ice creams. I'm not looking at D Live, so thank you, everyone. Johnny Red Pill Seed says, adversity, not diversity, makes strength. Well, the diversity push is obviously there to further undermine our collective nature, birds of a feather. Every single group on the planet does this. Everyone. So Francis says, well said, Andrew. I'm sorry, this is quite a bit delayed, I'm afraid. Practice makes perfect, says Sir Francis. Tash says, nothing to be ashamed of not knowing if you weren't taught. Well, thank you for that. But I'm a bit, I suppose I feel like I should know these things. Like we all should know these things, the basics, how to make basic food. I mean, there are a lot of children now growing up knowing nothing because everything is paid for. They pay other people to do everything.
Well, now's the year to just throw things at the wall, try everything out and see what you like, see what you're good at. And if you like something, you find you're good at it, just run with it.
Keep doing it.
And I've got a very simple soap recipe. If anybody wants to try it, requires very little equipment. It's stuff you can buy at the grocery store. I don't know how I can post it now, but basically all it is it's coconut oil, olive oil, lard, lye, and water. You don't need a thermometer. You just need an immersion blender or a stick blender and some sort of mold.
A metal one, ideally, everyone, if you're not doing the cold cure soap. If you're using heat, do not use a plastic one, as I found out to my cost.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's super easy to do. And I mean, I can send it. I don't know where I can post it.
We can send it over on Discord. And if we get it typed up, I can put it on our Telegram as well. Yours is hard soap, isn't it? Like bars of soap.
Yes, it's a hard soap. It's a long-lasting soap. So what it does, the coconut oil in the soap provides the nice lather. The lard provides a hardness, and then the olive oil provides a moisturizing part to it. And you can just leave it at that, and you will have a lovely unscented soap. And I mean, even if you have skin allergies, that should be fine to use.
Yeah.
Or
they're all natural ingredients.
But I've also in the past I've added like pink French clay to it. Ooh. And it's turned into a lovely, pink bar of soap. And then you can add essential oils for scent. Yeah. So these things, and I mean, we've talked. It's been a long time since we talked about soap.
It has been.
Yeah, it has. So maybe some people have heard this before, maybe some people haven't. But I actually did the math once on what it cost me to make soap. I made about 18 bars of soap, and it cost about 69 cents per bar of soap.
Crazy.
When I factored it all in. And the most expensive part of that was the bottle of essential oil, because the essential oils can get expensive.
They can, but you're also using a tiny amount per batch, so it does kind of pay for itself in the end.
It does, and you can get them on sale. You can, that sort of thing. That's what I always do. Is I would always watch for sales, and when things went on sale, I would buy a bunch, so that brings the cost down even more. Yeah. So
you can also use things like lemon peel and orange zest and. Natural ingredients, which might be cheaper for you than buying essential oils.
There's
to back up your hard soap, I've got a liquid soap recipe as well, which I'm happy to share.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to jump on our Discord or check our Telegram, we'll definitely get those posted up.
Yeah.
Why buy it when you can make it?
Exactly. And then you know exactly what's in it. And you know what? I use these bars of soap. I get some, nice twine and some colored paper. I give it out at Christmas. And
Yes.
people love to get this. Like, I mean, I'll take like 2 bars of soap and I'll wrap them up really nicely in some colored paper and, ribbon or whatever. And people love to get handmade, homemade soap. And, so you can give these, like, I mean, I know a lot of us don't have a lot of money, but this is sort of an easy way and a really inexpensive way that you can do something, give a Christmas gift or a birthday gift.
Yes.
And
everyone loves
it does,
something that's hand, like gift wrapped and handmade. I would
yeah,
rather someone make me a present. Everyone's going to say, no, 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 I want an Xbox. I'd rather someone make me a present than just go out and pay cash. Cash has become so meaningless in the sort of spiritual sense of who we are. I will say as well, if you are growing food this year, save your seeds. When we talk about the ward system and building up your community, the best way to use an icebreaker now is to save up and get some little tiny envelopes. Save your seeds, put 5 of each seed in an envelope, and go and give them to your neighbours with a Christmas card. They'll
yeah,
appreciate it. They especially now that people are starting to see the shelves are empty.
yeah,
All of these things are so incredibly cheap. Why would you pay extortionate prices for things you can make at home yourself?
But
yeah,
on the seed saving, I'm doing that with my Stand in the Park group. Like with
Good.
my Prairie Fire chilies, they cost, if they were to buy them, there's 10 seeds in a pack and they cost about £3. Well, I must have got like 20 in per minuscule chili. So I might as well just give them to them. It's better.
Yeah.
They're better off with them than me hoarding like 60 chili seeds that I'm never going to use.
Exactly. And there's no point trying to be greedy here and sell them because it first of all, it's not worth it. Second of all, why would you bother? I mean, I started off with 5 tomato seeds, organic tomato seeds last spring. I've got probably close to 500 seeds after this year's yield. I can't possibly use them all, so I'm going to be giving mine out. But
Well,
anything you grow,
I think that also speaks to our notion and our ideas of wealth and money. And, so, okay, if you can save some seeds and you can give them out, that's great. But yeah, you're right. Like to try and sell them, you're not going to get anywhere, I don't think. Unless you're a bigger seed company, unless you're, like there are seed companies, they probably took time to get established. They've had a huge customer base,
they
yada,
have
yada,
to be
yada.
licensed as well to sell seeds, and the
Right. So
government, of
there's
course,
all,
issues those.
right. So I think, because I've done seed saving as well. Um, I've actually done carrots this year. I've done cabbage this year. Uh, Pumpkins, I'll have seeds from, tomatoes. And I mean, ultimately, my goal personally is to be able to save all the seeds I need every year. I'm
Oh,
not there
yes.
yet, um, but I mean, for example, the one carrot that I kept to go to seed this year, um, I probably have 30 to 40 sort of seed heads on this one carrot, and each seed head probably contains at least 100 seeds.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I have more carrot seeds than I know what to do with. And I've started like the ones that are ready for harvesting. You just clip them, and I've been giving like these little seed heads out. And so, to neighbors, if I stop over to say hello or something, it's like, here, have some carrots.
Yeah. It's the gift that keeps on giving, because as long as you are growing this food and letting it go to seed, you will never run out. Never. And when we talk about food shortages, I mean, at the moment they're attacking meat for obvious reasons. Eventually, though, everything will be made in a lab that will be controlled and filled with unpronounceable names of things that we do not want in our bodies. So keep these will become the new generation of heritage seeds, the only ones that are untampered with. So for goodness sake, do keep back some for yourself, but please share them out with people that you know. It really is a good icebreaker, though. I just want to interrupt real quick to say Jordan's here, and he says Jared has had me Epsteined. I don't like that at all. How dare you? Visionary Companion says greetings from Seattle. Greetings to you. Jordan says a pig is just bacon in waiting. I quite like that. Yummy. Axiom Curb Community says, this is for both of you, actually. I'm going to let you answer this. Whoever thought your local neighbourhood would become virtual online, consisting of strangers you probably never meet? How did we let communities die? I don't think we let them die. Andrew, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think virtual online communities like we've got here can be really useful, especially with all the lockdowns. I think certainly my mental health has been better, being able to discuss everything and talk to people on here. But really, it needs to be offline. We need to move offline. That shouldn't be telling anybody something they don't already know. And I think that the stand in the park is a very good way of doing that. Now, of course, you've got to actually create a tangible community. It's going to be challenging. I mean, I personally have never lived in a proper, a cohesive community, and I'm pretty lucky that I know all my neighbours and I know their names, but it doesn't really go above that. So we're all starting from scratch. But I think going to your stand in the park, there's other various offline groups as well. Get in touch with them, network, get to know each other, and then you can start to think about how you create an actual community.
Yes. I will say, I mean, online communities have obviously served a very important purpose, because we share ideas, we share solutions, and we share plans. And the reality is, a lot of people's offline communities started online. If you can localize your community online, there are billions of people worldwide who agree with our position here and want to do something, but they don't know how to meet other people. It's a case of you don't know how to identify the people that agree with you. That's the beauty of the online community. But it is only a stepping stone. It shouldn't be the be all and end all. And I think Andrew's quite right. When you go out into the real world and speak to people, it engenders a sense of well-being, to know that not only do people agree with you online, but people who are close enough to be your neighbours agree with you. It makes you feel a bit more secure. Boudica, what do you think? No, she thinks she's having internet problems right now, I think. Let's jump through some of these other comments. There's a really good comment, though. Thank you for that. So Will says, many of these collaborators have never had it better. They can't sell us out fast enough. Unfortunately, this is the case, because while we're asking to be left alone, they won't leave us alone. We're not telling other people they must do what we want, but that we are certainly being told that we must do what they want. Thank you, Johnny. Yes, of course we remember. I have a terrible memory, but I do remember people. Right, just catching up on the chat. So you back with us, Boudica? Are you back, love? No, I think the internet's playing up. Scott Johnson, I can only see part of that, or the second. So how do you maintain your borders, have a military, etc., without a state? Well, we are definitely for small government. Andrew, do you want to talk about this one, or shall I take it?
Well, I think this is a good question. It's something that I'm thinking about and mulling over. The thing is, I think at this point, it's irrelevant anyway. We've got a military and we've got a state, and we don't maintain our borders. So
Yeah.
I think at this point, the best thing we can do is find like-minded people who are, not nutcases, who we actually want to live with, and start creating communities. That's literally the best thing we can do. Hopefully we can get land. Various groups can get various pieces of land and start building something tangible up, and then have it as their own thing. where you have your own shared values, your shared identity. Maybe you end up creating your own shared cultural practices. I don't know. You could. The possibilities are endless. I think that's the best way forward now. Regardless of where your position is on whether we should have a state, what that should consist of, whether we shouldn't have a state. It's you got to think where we are now, and we're a long way off anything really. Whether you're an anarchist who doesn't believe in the state, or whether you believe in an ultra state, an incredibly powerful state. We're at these are irrelevant at this point.
Yeah. And I would say if there was no state, I think the borders would be more secure than ever, because citizens would be manning the patrols. Necessity. We would build the things we need. People would be, volunteering their own boats. Does anyone remember the Second World War, where fishermen volunteered their own boats to go and rescue soldiers? In adversity, people always come through. I think having no state just means that we can organise smaller communities and work together as a whole. I personally do believe if the police wouldn't interfere, if Patel was vaguely competent, and if no one would interfere or stop us, I think citizen patrols would protect our borders. I truly believe that. And maybe, just maybe, our borders would be more secure. In fact, almost certainly they would.
There'd be a less of an incentive for mass immigration.
Yes.
I mean, of course, you'd always have small groups of people, who are probably highly qualified, who decide that they'd like to live in this country, like to build something up. There would always be that, but you wouldn't have 20,000 Afghans being flown in, 3 million Hong Kongers, and all the rest of it. So
exactly. I mean, we found out that Priti Patel has basically admitted that we've been bringing in 1,000 Afghanis every day since June. We, of course, there's no we, there's them and there's us. When they bring these people in, they don't think about the effect it's going to have on us. And that's the big problem. I don't sound communist here but people power. We do have the power. And the sooner people learn that, the better. We do not need a state to exist. We do not need a state to be successful. What we need is belief in ourselves, belief in our neighbours and our community. You could police your own community. I think national borders are a joke at this point, and I think that they're never going to be policed. If people think that somehow out of this we're going to have some kind of culturally homogeneous country, there's no chance. Not while these people are in charge. And the state that we have is an example of the state we would have. Once you give power to a state, no matter how genuine someone seems, once they get power, it just becomes unprincipled and it's corrupt. And it's always about keeping that power, defending that power. And when that power comes under threat, guess what? That's when the jackboots come out. That's when the boot is the heel of the boot is on the back of your neck. And you're told you must do this and you can't say that and you can't think this. Small communities are the way forward. Small communities will grow into large communities. It's the way we've always done it and it used to work. Are you back, Boudica? Oh, I'm so annoyed about your internet problems. I know you've got loads to say on this. But yeah, that was a very good question. Thank you so much. Reboot Needed said, making and growing our own produce also takes money away from our enemies. Yes, starve the beast. We've always said this. The more you make or repurpose, the less you pay to them. Zant says, my carrots are booming. Very, very pleased to hear it.
Nice.
Right, let's see what else. Who else is here? Good evening, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us. Axiom says, more of an observation, but yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I think decentralized communities will have to suffice now. We need to get busy, stay focused and carry on. Well said. We need people to be positive. It may seem like doom and gloom, but that's exactly what they want us to think. And again, all of this demoralization propaganda is only necessary because people aren't buying it. Don't be fooled into thinking that we've already lost. If we had lost, that would stop. And we really, they're playing like 20D chess right now. You cannot fall for it. The media is their puppet. The media is not reporting the news. The media is not telling us what's actually going on. They're telling us what they want us to know because they know that we can't independently verify it. The best suggestion, certainly Jordan ever made on the show, was to switch off the news. Don't read the news. We only read it now to mock it.
Can you hear me?
Yay! She's back.
Okay.
Hello.
I don't know what's going on. Sorry.
It's the feds. Clearly, we're
I don't
talking
know.
too much sense, and they have to shut it down.
Well, I'm going between like wired earbuds and my wireless, just trying to make it work because like my internet connection is actually good. I just don't know why I can't.
Say,
connect to
I've
you
actually
guys.
been having serious problems the last few days, and mine's usually excellent. So yeah, I think there's some gremlins in the works.
Yeah. Oh, Philomena said I fed the hamster. Yeah, I fed the hamster.
Yeah, Jordan shouldn't be lending out that hamster. Really, it's overworked and underpaid as it is.
Yeah.
Good evening, English bird. So we've had a few questions. The last one was regarding, what we could achieve without a state, or rather, what we would lose without a state. What are your thoughts on that? We were talking specifically about things like borders and military, and again, this applies to everyone in every country.
What we would lose without a state?
Yeah, like the things. Well, first of all, the things that we couldn't control if there was no big state, and this is not a disagreement. It's more of a comment to see what we think about it.
I think if we suddenly found ourselves without the government oversight that we're accustomed to having, police, military, government at the local and national level. I think if we suddenly found ourselves without that, I think what would happen is people would just naturally form communities. They would naturally just come together and they would deal with sort of the day-to-day problems that come up on their own.
Yes.
It might be messy and chaotic at first, but I think quickly people would just, gravitate towards each other, and I think natural leaders would come out.
I was just going to say that, yes, we would organise, and people, I think, would naturally fall into the roles that are best suited for them.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's what would happen is if we suddenly found ourselves in that position. There was some sort of catastrophe and the whole world fell apart. We would make it work just like we always have. I think I saw the question, how did we lose our community? Someone had asked that.
Yes.
A while back. I think it goes back to that natural, slow progression, that degradation of, when I was saying our intelligence and our education system, how we've been dumbed down. I think that was all part of it. Our communities were slowly broken down in the sense that they were undermined.
Yes.
A local community shouldn't be able to decide how they run this, that, or the other thing, because that's not how everybody else in the province, state, county runs it. So we need, this consistency, and everybody needs to be on the same playing field. And so it was this slow degradation of our communities, slow undermining of the authority of the individual community. I think that's how we lost it. It wasn't necessarily something that the average person consented to or wanted. It was something, I think, that was imposed on us from on high.
Yes.
Under the guise of for the greater good.
Of course. I mean, that's what we're going through now, isn't it? That your behaviour should be dictated for the greater good, except the greater good is smoke and mirrors. I've got another question here from Axiom. It's a very good question. I'm going to pass this one to Boudica first, Andrew. just in case she cuts out again.
Yeah.
How many here really believe the local physical community outside their house will pull together in a crisis?
I don't think it's going to be every community. I think it's
No.
going to be some. And I think the ones that will do that are the ones that kind of already do it already, just
Yes.
naturally on their own. You probably won't see a whole lot of this in big urban centers because, for the most part, big urban centers, yeah, you don't know who lives next door to you. You might recognize them. Like if you leave your house, you might recognize them if they're leaving their house. That's, oh, yeah, that's, the person who lives next door. But you probably don't know them. So it's not going to be everywhere, and it's not going to be all people.
Can I just say as well, as an example, we have already seen this in action, and although it wasn't in response to what we know is actually going on, but if you remember when the lockdowns first occurred, lots and lots of people started checking on their neighbours, started offering to go shopping and clean up their gardens, and just doing various little things just to kind of stay connected with each other. They did that. That was natural. That was organic. Nobody told them to do it. They just did. I know it didn't last very long, but the truth is, if that can happen at that time, it can happen again. And I think when people start to understand how bad things are really going to be, I do think they will come together for the most part. And I do agree it won't be everyone. But you know what? Your community is as good as the people in it. And if somebody needs to start your community working together, why not you? What do you think, Andrew, about the communities?
I think it's going to be dependent upon where you live. I think a lot of the communities, well, not really communities, are they? They're just people who happen to live on the same street. You won't have much of a chance with a lot of them. But I think the villages, you might get that because it's much more tightly knit. And you might
the rural
get to
areas.
know each other. Like you go to the local butcher and you know them by name, and they know you by name. There, you might. I think I think that's where your best bet is. But I think you've really got to foster that as a bit of a community. So you're not just on first name terms. Perhaps you have a bit of perhaps something where you can draw people to something central, like I don't know, maybe a fair, or where you have your local butchers and your local greengrocers, etc., who provide food for that, and you get to know them. The local people get to know them, talk to them. Maybe this local beers on offer, and all of that. So it draws people in, and they get to talk and solidify that community spirit. Perhaps even sports events, like a local cricket club.
But it doesn't matter.
That has to be fostered. We've got to actually put the effort into these. Yeah,
you can't just sit there and think, oh, well, my community's not doing anything. Again, if your community isn't actively working together, then you can be the catalyst for it. And you can go and knock on doors. And it doesn't matter the reason. You can come together for any reason, like a community cleanup. English Bird said earlier, litter picking and things like that. You go and knock on your neighbours' doors and say, oh, God, it's a bit messy around here. Let's all come together. Let's, like, once a month, let's just have a right clear up and make it all nice again. Let's go and knock on the neighbours whose gardens don't look so nice and see if maybe they're elderly or disabled, and just plant some flowers. There's a multitude of things you can do, but it requires somebody to take the first step. And if no one else is doing it, then it has to be you. Or at least you can't bemoan the fact that you don't have a community if you're not doing anything to create one. Scott Johnson II says, but we are where we are because we lost the state and allowed the left to take every single institution. Now, well, first of all, I think the state is part of it. I don't think we lost the state necessarily. Two cheeks of the same arse comes to mind. But with regard to the long march through our institutions, it was essentially unchallenged because we don't think like them. I think if you're looking for a solution to that, I think another long march is definitely not the answer. The generations, the time it would take, there's too much else going on that we need to focus on. I think that the left have done a very good job in convincing everyone else that they are the majority, and they simply aren't. If they were, we wouldn't see constant racism, diversity in the media. They wouldn't need to push this agenda if this agenda had already achieved its goals. So I don't think we lost anything. I think it was always designed to not work for us. I just think as time has gone on, they've been a bit more blatant in their goals. As for the institutions, again, you have the power individually to boycott these things. Stop sending your children to universities that promote critical race theory or anti-whiteness or whatever is against you. Stop engaging with it. Stop paying them. Stop promoting them. As for the state, well, you tell me what's happened to the state. The same state that tells you you've got to stay in your home under house arrest didn't close the borders during a so-called global pandemic. Left or right, there are so many things, so many stupid things the left have introduced while they've been in power, and the right have repealed none of them. So you tell me, did we lose it, or was it never designed for us in the first place? It's a very, very interesting idea that somehow it was for us and it was corrupted. I don't think it was ever for us. What do you think, Andrew?
Well, I think I might be inclined to agree. I mean, if you think about things like the press gangs, where Englishmen might go down into town to get some supplies for their family, and then a gang of men from Royal Navy would basically cart them off to fight in the Navy for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and if they're lucky, they might get back to see their family after that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's definitely called slavery. It is in my book, anyway.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. I mean, no, I think there's I think I'm inclined to agree with you, Joe, at that. But at this point on the left, I don't know if I'm even recognize the left-right paradigm anymore. It seems to be completely pointless, arbitrary.
Same.
It's like what was originally left wing versus right wing is now become completely relative depending on where your position is or where you are. Like the left and right in Europe, from a European perspective, is different to that in America. So it's just all over the place. I mean, it gives a general idea, perhaps, of where people sit, but not. But I don't know. I don't really believe in it that much anymore.
No,
and it's also a way of dividing people as well. Dividing people like, are you left wing, right wing? No, I'm English.
Exactly.
Deal with it.
Exactly. Scott Johnson goes on to say, Afghans and Hong Kong people have been brought in because the right wingers allowed the entire left to take over the state. I don't think they did. Again, I think that the right wing and the left wing are the same wing. And again, the state was corrupted many, many, many years ago. Everything was built for them, this entire system. So it was never built for us. And the only way to get out from under their yoke is to essentially see the dissolution of big government, in my personal opinion. We just cannot carry on being ruled by people who do not put our interests first. That's not the way this is supposed to work. Things are terribly wrong, and I don't think replacing one government with another is going to change it, because corruption is too rife. And you've got to remember, if you know what we know, and if you've done your research, you'll know that the people ruling your country are not the people wearing the president's name or the prime minister's name. It goes so much further beyond that. So even if you replaced your government, they're still puppets of a larger agenda. How on earth would you possibly halt it, change it, stop it? How could you? These people are so powerful that they've turned our own leaders against us. There is no way to beat this system. All you can do is create your own system. And detach yourself from this one. That's my personal opinion. No matter what, good evening. Did you used to be what gorilla? I'm not sure. But anyway, good evening, welcome. Grabbler, I love that name so much. Zant says councils are going to buy housing for invaders. Don't let anyone sell to them. Well, actually, this brings me on to something Andrew wanted to talk about. Lloyd's Bank, Andrew, they've got plans for housing, don't they?
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to let you field that one. What exactly are Lloyd's planning to do, Andrew?
Well, they want to invest. They want to buy up 10,000 houses by 2025 and 50,000 houses by 2030 in order to rent. So they basically become the UK's biggest renter, landowner. And this is something that we're seeing in America as well, with BlackRock doing the same. And at least with BlackRock, I don't know about Lloyd's TSB, but BlackRock have been offering up to 50% above the market rate.
Yes.
Just to buy those houses. It's part of the whole World Economic Forum's Great Reset. You'll what is it now? The year is 2030. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, this is how they're going to do it. One of the reasons. One of the ways. So yeah, I think it's something we need to be concerned about.
Absolutely.
Even more important for buying land. If you can lock down some land.
If you own your own home and you're in a reasonably low crime area, don't sell unless you are trading up. Because I think the people who are stuck renting are going to be in for an awful time. If these people control the roof over your head, your access to food, they control you. Make no mistake. So yeah, this is something to be very concerned about. And of course, the system is designed to stop people like us ever getting a foot on that ladder. This is something we need to change. This is something that we are trying to, within this community, work on. And this is why we always ask people to share ideas and to talk about things that they have achieved. Whether it's, whether you've got access to land that you can buy or someone willing to let you rent it for a period of time until you've paid it off, whether it's a business idea, whether it's any way to get out of the system and to get ahead. There are lots of really good people in this community who are so skilled in certain areas. The only thing it takes now is that last push, that bit of tenacity. We've got to have faith in ourselves that this will change, that we will change it. We do not have to be slaves to the system. And I think the system is so broken now, it can't be fixed. And even if you were able to get a foot in the door, there's so many people above you that want you to fail. And they have all the power, all the influence, and all the money. We've got to create our own systems, parallel societies, parallel communities. If you want to live in a safe, low crime area, create one. Work with other people. This is what the online community should be utilizing. Finding people that are willing to work with you, people that share your ideals and your goals, and people who are, go-getters, productive people. The solutions won't come to those who wait. We have to create our own solutions.
I'm back. I hope
Hello!
you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Well, I was just going to say on that thread, when we talk about parallel economies or whatever, it always starts with something small. You don't have to do something big. You don't have to think of the new best-selling thing that you can sell from your back door of your house or anything. It's small things like, can you buy a couple of things from your local farmer? Can you trade something with a neighbor or a friend or a family member?
Oh, not again.
It's just these small things. It doesn't have to be.
You dropped out again just for a second and then you came back.
Okay.
Seriously, it's the feds. We're talking too much sense. I do agree with that though. Yes, you start small. It doesn't have to be end game straight away. You just build up.
Yeah, like can you do you have I don't know, it can be anything. It can be just small things. Like, can you buy something from a local bakery once, as a treat? Can you buy a small thing, a small cake or something from a local bakery? Or can you, if your neighbor has something that they do, whatever, can you say to them, hey, if I do this that I'm really good at, in exchange, can I have that thing that you make? Can I trade you a cake for some soap, or whatever, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
these small things, and it's from there that the opportunities build and are generated. And that's how we do this.
Yeah.
It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be big things. If you're not trading, if you're still using money, maybe these things will cost you a little bit more out of pocket.
Yeah.
And that's why, maybe it's just occasionally, once or twice a month, maybe you buy a special cake, or you go to the local dairy and buy the slightly more expensive, thing of milk, or whatever the case may be. But that's
Well,
how we do it.
and that's how we used to do it with clothing as well. We've mentioned this so many times. It's not something I really hear other people talking about so much.
Mm-hmm.
But like with clothing, if you're spending, I don't know what people spend on clothing. I spend very little. I literally replace things when they're worn out, because I hate shopping. I know I'm a rare creature, but if you're buying, I don't know, like 10 t-shirts or 2 pairs of jeans every couple of months, think of it like this: if you start taking better care of the stuff you have, and if you forego one of those sort of restocks of your wardrobe and buy one item of quality, and then do it again, do it 2 or 3 times a year, or as often as you can afford to,
Yep.
you're going to start to build up something that's going to last for a very long time. And although it might cost a lot initially, or a lot more than you're used to paying, let's say, you are going to find that in the long term it's going to save you a fortune. And we talk about repurposing furniture. If how many people just smash up furniture or throw it out? Well, the next time you have a bit of furniture that needs replacing, can it be broken down and made into something else? Repurposing. Or give it to someone. Give it to someone that needs it. Could be a coffee table, could be a washing machine that's kind of on its last legs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you know someone who's a bit handy, they can have a tinker with it. These things aren't designed to last, but the components for them are pretty cheap if you know what you're doing.
Well, and on the theme of clothing, you know, like, think about making your own clothes. If you can. I know not everybody can, and I know not everybody has a sewing machine or the skill or the time. But if you do, even if you have just sort of basic sewing skills, maybe you learned them in school or something, you can get a basic sewing machine for very inexpensive. And then you can actually choose the fabric of the item that you're going to wear. What I've done is, I have actually, there's not many, but I have found fabric that is not made in China. Like, I mean, if someone goes down to their, like, here they're called Fabricland. It's sort of the go-to fabric place. Almost all of that stuff, all of that fabric, regardless of what type it is, it comes from China. It's not
Yeah.
manufactured locally. It's not, the raw materials are not grown locally. So I have found a few places that actually sell fabric, that the raw materials, whether it's a cotton or the linen or whatever, is grown for me, in North America. I mean, you guys, would have your own sources in Europe as well. But yes, it costs a little bit more. But then I know that fabric that I'm making that t-shirt out of, or that pair of pants out of, or whatever, it comes from the local economy. And local, I use loosely because it's not like, within walking distance, but it's within the same country, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, those items are then, the fabric itself is quality. And then as you get better at sewing, and I mean, a t-shirt is a very simple thing to do, so even if you do have just those basic sewing skills, you could very easily put together a t-shirt that looks nice, and fits well, and it lasts. That's the other thing. That might be a bit more advanced for some people, but that's another part of it. I mean, maybe, for some entrepreneurial people, maybe you could, who have the skill and the determination, you can start selling those things in your local community, making your basic t-shirts, or, shorts or skirts, or whatever, just basic clothing items. And for those who don't have those skills or the inclination or the time, if there's someone like that in your community, support them. Yes, you're going to pay more for that t-shirt than, the $5 that you would at a Walmart or whatever, or off of Amazon. You might pay 20, you might pay 30, just depending. But you're going to have a much higher quality piece of clothing. And then you also have the satisfaction of knowing that you're not supporting the big box elitist, whatever you want to call them, right?
Yeah.
So it's things to think about. And I know it's not going to apply to everybody, and I know it's not something that everybody can do. But it's something to think about. And clothing is huge. I mean, we all need clothes. But those are the things that I think about, at least anyway. And then again, we've had conversations where, I've said I would love nothing more. This is sort of my, personal dream, is to have a community where I can have a large flax field, and I can then spin that flax into linen thread and weave it, and have linen cloth that can then be used by the community. Every household gets a bolt of fabric, and every household is responsible for creating their own clothes. Like, that's, kind of a pipe dream of mine. But, again, it goes back to changing how we think about wealth. Having a small local fabric manufacturer by our current society standards, it's a money losing venture. And that's why we don't have them anymore. We don't have our local textile mills anymore, because they just aren't worth it. But if, we have these sort of textile mills of our own, or ways of producing our own, I would happily trade, a bolt of fabric for something that I have no interest in doing, like leather. I mean, I want to use leather products, but I have no interest in tanning and working with leather, for example. And that's one that I've given to Joe and Andrew before. But there are other people who have that interest. So it's like, okay, let's trade. And
Yeah.
I would be happy doing that. And so these are the things, this is all part of, how do we create community? How do we shore ourselves up for the future, when things, are a little more bleak? That's kind of my take on those things. Because I mean, that's how it used to be. It used to be for millennia that the clothing you wore was the clothing your mother or your grandmother or your aunts made for you. If they didn't make it, you didn't have it.
Exactly.
So
Speaking
anyway,
of
that's my
leather,
2 cents on that. That was kind of a long-winded diatribe.
no, but I think it's important. I mean, Andrew's very interested in working with leather. He's made some
But,
amazing things, and yeah,
but yeah,
I do agree with you. And I think it's about people trying things
yeah,
and seeing what they enjoy.
yeah,
When Andrew posted the things that he made, the stitch work on them was amazing, and I truly thought at first he was on a wind up, because the stitching looked like it was machine stitched. It was so accurate. And I think the problem we've got is, I think we've said this before, and it seems like a bit of a trite thing to say, but I don't think we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of success. It's been so long since we have individually sought success, because we
yeah,
have become very compliant and very conditioned to just believe that other people will do for us the things we can't do. Why bother learning, right? There's always someone willing to do it in exchange for money. But then I'm thinking, you're dead right. We can start this kind of barter and trade now. Andrew's already talked about doing this with his group, and as he said earlier, trading seeds and things. What else do you talk about with your group regarding trade, Andrew? And do you have any examples you can give us of things that your group is trading now or is talking about trading?
Well, we're swapping produce, like tomatoes and chilies and things like that. So we're doing that. I've got some seed envelopes on order. So when they come, I'll give them some chili seeds. I'm waiting for my gherkins to mature so I can get some seeds out of that, and I'm giving that to one guy. So things like that, really. Yeah.
And just to be clear, if anyone's unaware, this is a stand in the park. This is Andrew's physical community that he has become a part of, and it's growing. It's growing every day. Every time they meet, and they are not meeting now just on Sundays, are you?
No, we're going to local pubs that are not enforcing all this, all this craziness. They're not, yeah. So it's really good. I definitely recommend people go down to their stand. So Sunday, 10 o'clock at the local park, but just check beforehand that the park's actually listed. And if it's not, start one.
Absolutely. Again, this starts and ends with you, and I'm not picking on one person. I mean you collectively. If the thing that you need doesn't exist, create it. We're going to have to get to this point now where we stop waiting for these things to happen and start making them happen. And it takes a lot of confidence. Andrew was quite nervous about his first meeting, which he's told us all. But when he got there, he said it was wonderful, and it made such a difference to him to actually go and speak to people offline. And I think this would be, from a mental health perspective, for all of us, I think it would be just so good. It would really get you into that mindset of physically doing something to change our fate rather than just talking about doing something. Sorry, Boudica, you wanted to jump in there.
I was just going to say something. Somebody made a comment about, how spending a huge amount of money on clothing for a young child who would outgrow it really quickly. You're right. Spending a lot of money on clothing for children, if they're better quality, is a huge concern. I mean, there's certainly a balance that needs to be struck between, budget and all of this. Families, especially with young children, usually don't have a whole lot of disposable income, and
Yeah.
so that makes it tough. But the counter to that, I would say, is especially if you are planning on having multiple children. If you invest in some quality pieces, let's say with your first child, usually with some care, those pieces can be handed down to subsequent children.
Many times over.
Yeah. So when you actually factor in the cost over the life, if you have 3 or 4 children, or even 2, I mean, you're sort of dividing that cost.
Yeah.
And then once you're done having children, you could then pass those items on to, maybe a sibling for your nieces and nephews, or a neighbor if they have young children. So, I mean, those costs can be brought down, and it doesn't have to be every single piece of clothing. But then the other part of that is too, children, especially babies, don't need a whole lot. I mean, and I speak from experience. I have 3 children of my own. I've been there, done that. Especially first-time parents, they are sold this bill of goods that you need to have all of this, frankly, crap.
Yes.
In order to be a good parent, in order to help your child develop and be smart and intelligent. You don't need it. You don't need toys out the wazoo. You don't need, a closet full of clothes and a dresser full of clothes. I mean, yes, babies spit up. Babies will need, changes of clothes probably multiple times a day.
But like 14 baby grows pretty much covers you for the week. You don't need like 300.
No, and yes, you need, so there's a certain practicality to it. but at the same time, you don't need a huge amount. And I think there was also a comment about, the brand name stuff.
Yes.
Babies do not care,
No.
do not care what brand name they are wearing. That
This
is
is
for the
about the
parents.
parents. Yes. Yeah.
And
Drop the labels and buy quality. As somebody
yeah,
said, this is all like rubbish from China. This is not. These are children making these clothes. Like you've all seen the
yes,
video I posted of children making the masks and like moving them around with their feet. And
yeah,
then people are putting them on their faces. There's
yeah,
no evidence of quality there. It's
no,
just someone sticks a high price tag on it and you think, oh, must be quality. Of course it's
yeah.
not.
And that's a mindset that everybody has to work on. I have to work on that too myself, because we have been so conditioned to accept that expensive equals quality, which is not always the case. Sometimes it is. I will admit that, but you have to take other things into account.
Yeah.
You have to take, where is this being made? What materials are it being made out of? Is this a specialty item that's, sort of made to order? Those are the things that truly drive up the cost
Yes.
of an item. A name brand in and of itself does not mean quality, and it drives up the cost of that item artificially. So, I completely understand, the concern. Kids grow so fast and they grow out of things. And I mean, I was given clothes for my children when they were babies that they didn't even wear, because by the time I kind of circulated through what I had
They'd
and
grown
got them
out of
into it,
them.
they had grown out of it already.
Well, that's the
So
biggest part of baby clothes. Nothing gets worn out. They grow so quickly.
yeah.
There's no time to wear holes in anything or wear the knees. Even a
Well, and
toddler.
infants won't wear things out. The worst thing that an infant can do to a piece of clothing is stain it with like spit up.
Or the other end, which is
Yeah,
probably a worse stain. But yeah,
right.
that's
But a stain, like you wash that piece of clothing. Okay, yes, it might be stained. It might not look, as appealing, but it's still clean and it's still
exactly,
serviceable, and you can still use it. And maybe when the child grows out of it, maybe that's one of those things that you get rid of, or something that's not
exactly.
one of the pieces you keep. But with children, it's so easy to reuse those clothes for multiple children, and they can still look great, when you're on your third or your fourth child.
Exactly.
um
Quality
so
age.
exactly. So, it's something to think about. I don't know if there are any young parents out there listening to this, or people who are thinking of having children, but honestly, infants especially, you don't need a whole lot of stuff. You really don't.
No, you don't. And
Um,
I'll tell you something else as well. You can pick up an awful lot of stuff at charity shops and secondhand shops. And a lot of people be like, ooh, secondhand shops, it's my baby. What about germs? Boil them. That's what we used to do.
or wash them. Like, I mean, plain old soap and water. I mean, you just wash the item and you're good. And then, when your child gets a bit older and they start becoming more interactive and you want them to have some toys, great. Get them toys. But again, think about the quality. Because I mean, I've had periods in my life when my children were really small, and I felt like I was constantly picking up toys because they had so much crap. Um, and really, kids don't need a whole lot. And I figured that out at one point, where I had one day where, the kids had gone down for their nap, and I spent like the whole time, it seemed like, picking up toys and cleaning up toys. And I'm like, I don't need to do this. And so I started going through them, and I kept the really good ones and the ones that they seemed to prefer.
I absolutely agree with that. And again, it comes down to the individual, doesn't it? I mean, your budget is your budget, and we're not trying to sort of money shame anyone. But
Yeah.
if you are thinking about having children and people are telling you need this, that, and the other, I would highly advise just buy the basics. And by the way, if your children have got loads of toys, what they don't need are more toys. What they need is for you to sit down and play with them and get their brains working and help them to use their imagination. You do not need to spend a fortune on babies and toddlers.
No.
Buy them toys that they'll probably never remember as they grow up. What
Yeah.
they want from you is love, security, and time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can give them that in abundance, and guess what? It costs nothing.
Exactly. So, I completely get it about the whole kid thing. They outgrow stuff quickly, toys, clothes, whatever. Um, but, again, sort of changing the mindset of what quality wealth, what it means.
Yes.
Because if you can afford to say, yeah, get a dozen really good quality, made in England, made in Canada, made in the USA, whatever, baby grows, but that's all you can afford in terms of clothes, well, that's going to be just fine for the first few months of life.
Of course it is.
And
I want to
then,
address
yeah,
this issue of first of all, Mike in Colchester says I learnt to service my own car. Well done, you. That's going to save you a fortune going forward, and maybe you can start to be the handyman for your neighbours when it comes to cars. But welcome back. It says I have co-workers that sort of get bullied by their kids, saying they'll be made fun of at school if they don't have it. I want to address this idea of hand-me-downs. Hand-me-downs are by definition quality, and I'll tell you why. Because they would not last if they weren't. We need to get this idea of quality hand-me-downs. It's an awful phrase, I know, but this is clothing of such good quality that it can be used by multiple children. It's the opposite of rubbish.
mm-hmm.
The stuff that you buy and pay a fortune for that twists or tears or has holes in it after a couple of months, that's the rubbish. The stuff you paid like £300 for because it's got a stupid badge on the right chest pocket or something. It's just it's ridiculous. This is made, mass produced in a factory by people who aren't even paid a living wage. That's not quality. That's just people showing off. And the best way to make sure your children aren't bullied at school is to get them to completely understand how utterly useless these labels are.
Yep.
If we all did that, no one would bully anyone.
Yeah. And like I said, even if you have some basic sewing skills, give it a try. Get a basic t-shirt pattern that you can reuse over and over again. Invest in the t-shirt pattern I have uses about 1 meter of fabric for an adult size t-shirt. But the pattern I bought, it's in baby sizes all the way up to like extra, extra, extra large.
And that's
So
the
I've got,
beauty of it. So you pay for the pattern once. How many times can you use that pattern? Forever.
exactly. So you get a pattern, buy yourself what you need, give it a try, cut it out, sew it together, figure it out, see where mistakes have been made, if any, and then wear it. And I mean, if it's not something that you want to wear, like if you're too embarrassed because you don't think it looks as high quality as it should or well put together as it should, wear it around your house, wear it when you're gardening. It's just another piece of clothing, and then do it again, and you'll get better the next time.
Yes,
And
of
I
course.
think, we've also got this attitude of all or nothing. When someone, if you try something new, whether it's sewing or soap making or whatever, gardening, whatever it might be, don't get into the thought process of all or nothing. If you fail your first time, okay, that sucks. It's not very encouraging. I get it. But go back and see if you can figure out where your mistake was.
Yeah.
Try
Because
it again.
you probably will fail the first time. The first time I made bread, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And I started to get a bit demoralized about it because I tried a few times and it was a disaster. And then I found out what I was doing wrong and boom, sorted.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah. So try it again, try and figure out what happened, and then, go back and do it again. Or with sewing, I mean, you could rip the stitches out and, try again on the same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a tension issue with your machine or something, who knows? Or, for me, I've done a lot of new things where on the first time I've succeeded fairly well, but then it's like the third time where something's gone wrong. But at least I know I can do it. So, at some point, even if you do have success, you might fail. But don't don't throw your hands in the air and go, okay, now I can't ever do this again because something went wrong. And I think we have a lot of that attitude that's been sort of ingrained in us, that it's got to be all or nothing.
We
Either I
do.
succeed or I don't, and if I don't, that's it. I can't do it again.
It's a confidence thing, but again, you've mentioned this before. It's about our forefathers. If they had given up at the first try, where would we be now? We wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even have something great to allude to when we talk about making things better. It would have all been naff forever.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew, again, is a good example of this. When he tried the stitching with the leather work, it was amazing, and he really lucked out on his first try, and he found that he had a passion for it and he really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But he's also tried other things, and his attitude was a healthy one. That was a bit rubbish. I wasn't so good at that, but I really enjoy this. And this is why we keep saying, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Don't choose one thing and think this is the one and it has to work. You're putting so much pressure on yourself. Try various things, revisit the ones you enjoyed, and see if you can get better at them. Nobody
Yeah.
is going to be excellent at everything.
No,
Everyone
and
has
nobody should
something.
try.
Exactly. There'll be things you do that you enjoy that you're not very good at. There'll be things that you hate, things that you are excellent at that you enjoy. You've got to keep trying until you find your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you found your thing, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to be productive, and you're going to produce really great results. That could be the first stirrings of a business idea. If nothing else, it's an enjoyable hobby that is going to
Yeah.
save you money.
Yeah.
Will's asking real quick, and I'll pass this one to you, Boudica, before we move on. The cloth diaper thing seems like a nightmare. Is it worth trying? You've had children more
I
recently
did the
than me,
cloth
so I'm going
diaper
to let
thing
you
with my
take this one.
eldest.
Okay, that sounds like you didn't carry on.
Yeah, I did do cloth diapers with. Well, see, what happened is we ended up. I did it with him when he was really young, and it was actually working out pretty good. Yes, it's a little bit more work, but everything is right. But then we ended up traveling to visit some family that were quite a distance away. And so for the trip, I ended up putting him into the disposable diapers, just because I wasn't able to wash the cloth diapers, and it was just more of a hassle. And then I never went back. And then with my other children, I just didn't, because then I had like a toddler and an infant, and then I had two toddlers and an infant, and it was just a lot of work. Now, if that was my only choice, I would have made it work. Just like our ancestors, back in the day when there was no such thing as a disposable diaper, they made the cloth diapers work. But I did do it. I did enjoy it. There are lots of options out there for cloth diapers. Like there's ones that you can get that are really nicely fitted, and they're sort of cut around the legs, and
And they have like little Velcro patches on them as
Velcro
well.
and little snaps. You don't have to use like the big diaper pins
Yeah.
to secure them. Like they're actually really, really aesthetically pleasing, like and easy to use. And they're not as bulky, but they're still absorbent. So and there's patterns, like you can make your own. You can buy the materials for it and do it yourself if you're a bit handy. So there's lots of options, and I did enjoy the cloth diapers. It's just I got out of the habit. It wasn't a priority for me at the time. If I could go back and do it again, knowing what I know now, sort of thing, I might change how I did it. But
you've got to think of it as well. There's a couple of things I want to add here. First of all, I didn't have an issue with the nappies themselves. It was those awful plastic pants you used to put on over them to stop anything leaking that would cut into the baby's legs, which I hated.
Yeah.
I wanted to say regarding the subject of things like that, back in the day when your grandparents were alive and they had no other choice, there was a reason why they had laundry day, because it took all day. And they used to boil things like nappies. And it just occurred to me to give these women some credit. When those who won't be named came along and told them that they all need to get into the workplace, and there were many other options out there for them, and and they were oppressed and all this other rubbish they were told, of course they were desperate for change because it was hard work. But you know what? Their families were better for it, their children were better for it, their husbands were happier for it, their husbands could support them on a single wage.
Yeah.
But yes, they worked hard. Maybe they didn't all get the recognition they deserved, but they worked hard and everyone was better for it. And the reality is, with what's coming, we're going to have to get used to these things again. We're going to have to get used to losing convenience. If you are considering cloth nappies, I would say invest in a couple and try them, because
Yeah.
the case may be that you have to get used to them whether you like it or not.
Okay. I see a question on gardening I'd like to answer, and then I have to go because my tablet's about to die. So
No worries.
somebody says, what's the difference between a greenhouse and a high tunnel? And if I've got this wrong, somebody can correct me. But a greenhouse is more of a structure that you would have that you grow your plants in sort of all year round. A high tunnel is a covering that you put over top of plants that are in the garden in the ground.
So
that
we'd call
protects
that a polytunnel or a cloche in this
Yeah.
country.
Right. So so that's the difference between the greenhouse and the high tunnel or the polytunnel. And usually the high tunnel, polytunnel is used. I mean, it can be used, in the fall and in the winter, depending on the climate you're in. But it can also be used, over cabbages, for example. So when they're in their early stages, to prevent cabbage moths from laying larvae in your cabbage. If you're in a particularly windy area, you could use it to protect against wind damage and stuff. But those are used when the plants are in the ground, and then a greenhouse is where the plants are in like a structure that's meant for growing food in that structure. So anyway, but on that note, I'm going to let you go. As fun as this has been chatting, it's always pleasurable talking to you guys.
Yes, we will do this again soon. Thank you so much. We really do. Well, you're so incredibly busy. We know this is the really.
Well, my
sacrifice of
tablet's
time.
about to die. Yeah. So, and I do have to get some housework done. I've sort of slacked off today, so I need to catch up.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We must do this again. This was such a good discussion. So thank you very much, lovey. I think her tablet's just died.
Okay.
Take care. Bye, love.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Can we have a thank you to Boudica in the chat, because she really is incredibly busy. She's raising a family. She's all of these things she talks about, she's actually doing them. So massive respect to her. Before we get back to you, Andrew, because I've got something I want to quickly bring up. I've left it on the screen, which is why I'm behind again. English Bird says that she has a group where people can donate old school uniforms and people can pick them up for free. So again, things like this are such a good reason to come together in your community. And these things are very costly for parents. Anything like that, anything at all, anything that brings people together, a common cause, that's all you need. It doesn't have to be anything extreme, and it doesn't have to be anything that's going to be controversial. Yes. Right, Andrew, I've got a question for you. Oh, where'd it go? Right, this is particularly of interest to Andrew. From Dillwich, or Dilwich. I'm still not sure how you would like us to say your name. I have a question. Where can I keep money without the government knowing, as they intend to stop cash?
Well, precious metals and crypto are the two things that come to mind. I think that's probably your best bet.
Now, as it turns out, Andrew is preparing a little something, talking about this kind of thing. So we will definitely be going through it on a future stream. But I'm sure if you have any questions, he's done loads of research. He'd be happy to guide you towards some research of your own. But honestly, it's always better to do your own research. But Andrew has looked into this a bit more than I have, so he's definitely the person to ask.
I've done 2 articles on crypto, so if you're interested, whether you know nothing about it and you want to learn more, done an article on that, or if you want to get started and get some experience and get some confidence with it, without having to spend a single penny, I've done an article on that as well.
I just want to mention this from Daffyd as well. He says, I've had bad memories of hand-me-downs, having 2 sisters. Oh, bless. Do they make you wear their skirts? I hope that's a joke. Otherwise, I'm so sorry. Oh, Michael Pagan is here. Good evening to you. If I've missed anyone on the chat tonight, I'm so sorry. I got so far behind, I had to skip like 10 minutes of comments. That's really bad. Oh, thank you very much. So Andrew has just given me a link I'm going to share with you now, which is for two links, which is for this particular article that he's written. Hopefully, you will be able to take some information from that, and that will start you on your own journey to researching. Let me just get to the bottom of the chat. I've had to skip a load of messages again. I'm so sorry. If anyone's got a question, I've skipped it. Please feel free to ask again. Yeah, loads and loads I'm skipping. I'm so sorry, everyone. Here we go. Right, so here is the first article. And here is the second. I hope you find these useful. Andrew's put a lot of time and effort into these as well. So thank you, Andrew. Hello, Earthrin. Just caught you there. If I have ignored everyone, genuinely, not on purpose, it's just really tough keeping up with the chat while we're talking. Sorry, English bird. Excuse me. So the other thing we wanted to talk about is children, and not specifically clothes now in this way, but we saw an interesting article talking about the societal happiness or mental health happiness of children has declined, and we were talking about this earlier. We think it's declined for many reasons, but I don't think adults are too far away from that, actually, because the children become adults and things we learn in childhood stay with us. But we were talking about the fact that children don't have youth clubs to go to. They're not productive. They're not taught to question authority. They're not taught to think for themselves. They're not taught to deal with adversity particularly well. I think the children we are the adults we become. So for those of you who've got children, it's really important to think about how this is all affecting them. And how we can help them to overcome it, and the kind of conversations that we maybe need to be having. Morris dancing is the only solution. I do agree. Morris dancing is excellent. So I want to hear from some of the younger people in the chat, or people with children. What kind of things could we do? What kind of communities could we build, or aspects of that community building that would benefit children? What do we think children are missing out on the most at the moment? And Andrew, as a younger person in the group, can you see parallels between children now and you growing up? Because yours was obviously more recent than mine. Do you feel a sense that children are missing too many things that they need to be productive adults? And what are those things, in your opinion?
Well, I suppose not being stuck on the computer or in front of a screen. I think it's probably the first thing.
Yeah, the internet's both brilliant and also harmful.
I think learning practical skills is going to be something that's incredibly important. Not only for skills that you can maybe have a job in the future or some sort of business, but just that confidence that you can actually do something.
Yes.
So that's one of them. And then I don't know about girls, but certainly for boys, I'd say boxing. Definitely boxing or some other form of proper martial art. That's certainly did a lot for me, and I got into it very late.
It's interesting you say that, because Daffod has just suggested safe playing out needed in urban areas. I mean, arguably, that's needed in all areas. But do you think that that's a massive factor? Because obviously children have become less sociable with what's gone on the last year and a half. But do you think they were less sociable before that? I mean, aside from institutions like schools and universities where they have to socialise, do you think that when it comes to choice, children are choosing to stay online because it's safer for them? I mean, that is something to consider, isn't it, given the current nature of crime in our country and its recent explosion. I mean, children are being stabbed at schools now, aren't they?
I don't know, to be honest.
I certainly think
think when
teaching
I
a
was-
child
when I
a
was young-
martial art is good.
When I
Sorry.
was younger, I used to go out biking and doing things like that, climbing trees, and then probably teenage years, it flipped, and I was spending most of the time inside playing video games. So I think maybe maybe children are doing the video games a lot younger, but I don't know. You'll have to ask somebody else. But it'd be interesting to know, because it can't be doing them any good.
Imagine though, imagine being a child now, all of you who are maybe parents especially, and thinking, I'd like to go out and play with my friends, but I'm too afraid. Just imagine that we now live in a society where that's actually something that children contemplate, and they must.
Well, I read an article a while back, and they were talking about I think it was a 7-year-old boy who was absolutely terrified of people now. He wants everyone to wear masks. He's washing his hand. He don't want to go near anybody. He freaks out if his parents aren't wearing a mask, even inside the house.
That child is traumatized. That would be classed under any other circumstances as PTSD, wouldn't it? I mean, this child is clearly traumatized by what's gone on. They've lost any confidence with speaking to people. I mean, all this isolation. I keep thinking back to this. As a parent, this breaks my heart. But children who were born in the last year and a half, whose parents are a little bit paranoid and crazy, are not going to have a normal upbringing. They're not going to learn healthy behaviours. And it's just truly heartbreaking. Free Gamer Will says, I did karate as a boy and it was great to know I could protect myself. It gave me a lot of confidence my peers lacked. I do think something like martial arts is good for people. And also, good evening, Tom. Thank you for joining us. I do think martial arts or some form of self-defense is very good for both boys and girls, or bells, as I just said. David says, there are more kids playing out in my village than in a city of 3 million, and that tells you everything you need to know. And when we talk about building communities, what we essentially want to build are sanctuaries, places where our neighbours are decent people with good morals and values, where our children are safe to play, where our pets aren't being injured on broken glass or syringes. All this talk about, let's just keep changing things. Let's just be more progressive. Everything was brilliant before, or at least as good as it could be. Every time something progressive changes our society, we become a little bit less safe, a little bit less successful, affluent, secure. The only way this turns around is if we turn it around, because the state keeps doing things that benefit one group over another. The group that always loses is us. So making children safe, would you say that's the key? Like building their confidence, knowing that they can handle themselves in a bit of a hairy situation.
Yeah. But I think, and it also teaches them discipline.
Yes.
Like if you want to be able to compete, even at a basic level with sparring, you've got to put that effort in just on the basic level of fitness, let alone any of the techniques, because otherwise you just will not last a 2-minute amateur round. You just won't. You'll gas out, and then you'll get a bit of an hiding, and then you'll think, oh, got some work to do.
So do you think that's one of the key things then, that children just they don't have the coping mechanisms for life, and that's why many of them are suffering from mental health issues, and they say they're depressed. I don't know that they're depressed necessarily, but I certainly think they weren't equipped to deal with the adversity of life, or the diversity of life, as it turns out. Tom P says, David Lammy's quote, they need more table tennis, end quote. Please tell me he didn't say that, although would I be surprised if he did? I'm assuming he's talking about young black boys now, because David Lammy is sometimes English and sometimes Ghanaian, and I don't think he really knows who he is. I'm surprised he doesn't come out as trans, to be perfectly honest. Johnny says, yes, playing outside, getting hurt playing and so on. Our people, children, are being made far too soft now. Do you think there's an element of parents trying to protect their children from everything to such an extent that they are protecting them from any adversity whatsoever?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's probably a factor.
So what could we do for young people then if we're ever in a position where we're building these communities, if we get that far and these communities start popping up, what should we be doing for young people? You mentioned teaching them skills. You think like little sort of organised groups to teach them, kind of like the Boy Scouts. This was our original goal for the ward system anyway, for the White Rose and Thorns, but maybe some kind of orientation, to teach them basic skills, how to deal with things in an emergency. I mentioned scouts. I'm not ignoring the girls, like scouts, brownies, girl guides, whatever. But teaching children to be capable, maybe, is the
They could
key.
do apprenticeships, like a light apprenticeship with some local craftsmen. So if you've got like a blacksmith, I mean, how amazing would it be as a group of 10-year-old lads to be going around in a blacksmith and being told, right, then this is what you're going to do. What you're going to do is you're going to make a knife. That's your goal. You're all going to have a knife made, and you're going to make it yourself. And the blacksmith will teach you how to do it. I mean, I'd have been up for that at 10. I mean, then at the end of it, they've got something tangible to show, and they can say, I've made that. And then they can also decide, did they enjoy doing it? It might not be for them. In which case, they know then, there and then, that that's not an avenue that they want to go down. Or maybe they decide, actually, I enjoyed that. Maybe it's something to pursue. Maybe they decide to help out a bit. Maybe they'll learn more skills.
And unlike a university degree, they've tried something. They can determine whether or not they like it. They've probably been paid something for it. They don't have a ton of debt, and they haven't wasted 4 years of their lives to find out that I'm actually doing the wrong thing. And as you say, there's no long-term commitment there. If they decide it's not for them, they can just move on to something else. But what you're doing essentially is building up a generation of multi-skilled children. They might not enjoy one aspect of what they're doing, but they'll certainly be capable of doing it.
The universities are just propaganda centres. I think we all know this now, and we're probably going to be locked out of them anyway with this, no jab, no university place. So they probably will have to go back to actual practical skills, and to be honest, that's probably the best anyway. You'd probably be a lot happier doing that sort of thing, and they're actually useful. We will need this.
It's interesting how deluded these people are. Like, no jabs, no university place, and we're all going, yes, kick those children out, force them to learn a trade and get a job. They actually think people want what they're offering. This is the delusion that they're engaging. I find it laughable. English Bird says, do a heritage group for English kids, just like the others have. We certainly need to start creating things for us. Things that appeal to us, that are created for and by us, and that benefit us. Every other group does this. There is nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong at all. So yes, we definitely should be doing something like that. Spacing UK says, David Lammy is Black English, thank you very much. Okay. They've scared kids into never collectivising, says Daffyd. And English Bird says, yes, 100%. Trying to get a playgroup outside is a nightmare. Parents' fault, yes. I think this comes down to this is Munchausen's by proxy. I've been saying this all the way through this. It's the same with the trans agenda. If the parent wants attention, they will often use their child to get it. Desmond is amazing, being a case in point. That poor child. Mike in Colchester is asking, I should probably just call you Mike from now on, actually. Isn't there woodwork at secondary school now? It's been a while for me. I did have it. Does anyone know? Does anyone have children in secondary school? Do they still teach kids like basics like woodwork and metalwork? And Reboot Needed said, if Lammy is a Black Englishman, I'm a Chinese Somalian. What are you doing in this group? Reboot needed. I'm joking. A fishing group, says English Bird. What do you feel about fishing? We never talk about fishing. Or rather, we don't talk about it very much. Teaching children to fish. Teach a man to fish. We could make a water aid video for this country. Teaching children to fish, to feed themselves, to that kind of from field to table idea. Take them out on a boat, they catch the fish, they gut the fish, they prepare the fish, they cook the fish, they eat the fish. Wouldn't that engender such a sense of productive well-being in a child, do you think, that they've been able to do this thing?
Well, I used to do a bit of fishing, coarse fishing, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think that'd be good, and teaching them patience as well.
Yes.
It's a lot of sitting around.
Yeah, but that's good because this consumerist nightmare that we've all become a part of, everything's so convenient, isn't it? You want something, you can get it today. Order before 3 and you'll have it the same day. That needs to stop. You want something worth having, it's worth waiting for. Mike points out something very important. The thing with the fishing group is insurance and liability. Well, yes, it would have to be properly structured and arranged. But
in case they fall into a canal, got pulled in by some monster carp.
Yeah, like the Kraken. They've been attacked by the Kraken of Wales. We can always count on Will for just hard truth. In my early teens, I learned what it meant to be gay, and I knew I wasn't letting a man touch me. Kids today are taught the opposite.
Okay.
Well, yes. I don't know how you learned what it meant to be gay. Maybe you want to expand on that one. Now, this I really like. Just for transparency, I'm not religious. I've never pretended to be otherwise. Sunday schools, I love the idea of this. Even if it's a sort of a totally inclusive Sunday school, it doesn't have to teach religious things, but it could teach moral things. It could teach ethical things, and it could include skills and trades. And that is something, when I was growing up, I went to Sunday school briefly. Yeah, I know it's weird because I'm not religious, but whatever. It was convenient and my mum got a free babysitter. So what can I say? But it was fun. You got to spend time with other children. But the point is, as much as we did the religious teaching, we also did other things. And you could teach skills and things like this. And the best thing about this was my local Sunday school was hosted in one of my neighbours' homes. So this is something we could do. You could have people come together but essentially give classes to children. Teach them something, build something with them, bake something with them. Doesn't matter what it is. That's such a good idea. You do not need to be able to lease or rent premises to do this. You just need to come together with other parents who agree to it. And of course, unlike certain groups and organisations, parents would be welcome to see what's going on in your home with their children. Spacer UK says Desmond is doomed. I'm afraid he is. I feel so terribly sorry for that child. But I think it's over for him. A very good view says, old people know how to build, fix, mend and grow. Yes, they do. And it's a damn shame many of them have been killed off in the last year and a half. Reboot Needed has confirmed, yes, my two boys do woodwork at school. I'm so glad. Olzant says, no proper woodwork or metalwork, just textiles or something limited. I think children are only limited by their imagination. That's something we need to encourage again. This is a really good point from my stepdad's not mean. What do you think of this, Andrew? What they need as they start getting older is to be taught how to think for themselves and how to identify the propaganda manipulation tactics. This is something that truly needs to be passed on.
Yeah, I agree. I think when they're younger, you can start teaching them how to think so that they're actually thinking for themselves and coming up with ideas and questions. I think that's always important, being able to question things.
Yet having the confidence to question something, it's not necessarily a challenge. It's, you've said this and I don't understand why. Explain it to me. But children are, again, they're afraid to put their hands up because social shaming and peer pressure and various other things. This is why I've always advocated for homeschooling. They're not going to have these pressures, and they will feel comfortable and safe to ask these questions. This is a real shame. Tom says, my dad is a design tech teacher. Fortunately, most schools are slowly getting rid of the equipment, moving to 3D printing. I don't have an issue with 3D printing, but I do think that the old skills should be preserved. And apparently no one but us cares enough about it to do something like that. What we need to do is get people like your dad, Tom, to start having classes, workshops. And, people would pay to attend. Maybe that's a sideline for him, something to consider for the future. Sir Francis agrees with you, Andrew, that patience is virtuous. I do agree. Everyone just wants everything now. Yeah, Johnny makes a good point as well, because there is a balance, isn't there, between teaching your children to recognise this propaganda and see what's really going on, and allowing kids to just be kids. Keeping our children innocent, unfortunately, has been taken out of our hands. How do we prepare them for what's coming, for what they're going to face, without destroying their innocence? And that's a really good question for everyone to consider. I don't know what the answer is. I guess the only thing you can really do is make sure they understand that there is always a place, hopefully your home, where they feel safe and secure. And you can equip them to deal with the world with regard to, being able to physically take care of themselves. You need to also let your children know that they can tell you anything. That's a massive exercise of trust. And again, if you're not doing that, you can be sure their teachers are, and various other people they come into contact who have zero connection to them. But it is sad, yes. Kids should be innocent. Children. I don't want to use this word kids anymore. I was saying earlier, it's dehumanizing language. They're not baby goats. They are children. I understand the practicalities. What I would like to see in the future is things like church halls hosting the equivalent of a village school. Small class sizes and parent-teacher collaboration. There are many people who are not qualified teachers who could teach children something of value. What do you think about that, Andrew?
Yeah, the homeschooling, it's something that keeps popping up in my stand group. Various people are interested in it. I think for me, the homeschooling is one of the areas that I tend to leave to other people. But yeah, perhaps I think if you've got your own land and you've got your own businesses, it might be a bit easier. So if you all live in the same geographical area, I think that might be a bit easier, because then you might be able to take it in turns, or you can have like groups, like homeschooling group, rather than just individual parents.
English Bird says pagan Sunday school will include raiding villages and farming. I did think you meant aiding at first, but you've corrected it. But yeah, I mean, this is when I say what I mean, all inclusive. I don't mean like freaks and degenerates. I mean like non-denomination. If you're teaching ethics and morals and responsibility, then does it matter who's learning that? As long as the system isn't corrupted, which is why it must be done on a local level. So you are directly accountable for your interactions with other people's children, which is why you must have parents able to be present if they wish to be. But I think that can work. And I think every child needs to understand right from wrong. I think on some level they already do, but it needs to be reinforced. We need to help children make the right choices. And not every child is going to grow up with sane parents, like Desmond is amazing. And not every child is going to grow up with two parents. So we need to fill those gaps. We need to teach those children the things that they can't learn from their own parents. And it's just be a good person, and be respectful and be polite and work hard. You can't succeed at anything by just demanding it. You have to actually earn it. And what a novel concept, I know. But you don't get to just rock up and say, yeah, I want some. That's not how life works. You earn it, and then you get your reward. And just going back to the fishing thing, Mr. 262 says Diane Abbott wears 2 left flippers, so you'll be safe from underwater attacks on that quarter. I never thought of them as flippers before. I don't know if I like that. Yes, a very good view says, where I live, parents group together, paid for a teacher, and they all chip in to pay the salary. This actually coming back to our earlier point of how do you keep people out of your communities? The very same premise would apply. You would either get together a team of volunteers, or you would pay certain people to essentially be your security. We are free market advocates here. We're not small government, therefore small business. We absolutely believe in free market enterprise. If somebody is willing to provide a service and you want to pay for it, of course you should go ahead and do that. That's your choice. Personal freedom. What we're saying is, though, a lot of the things the state allegedly supplies doesn't work for us, and we should be free to provide it for ourselves. Like the teaching. And I would so much more trust a teacher who has dropped out of the communist institutions that are called state education now to teach my child than I would anyone who is publicly employed. Good evening, Violence is Life. English Bird says I do that already, telling my children to think for themselves and challenge. It does have a downside when it comes to telling them off. Yes, that's the problem, isn't it? You're teaching them to challenge authority, but what if it's your authority they're challenging? Yes, learning who has their best interests at heart. Again, these people are very insidious, and they burrow into them, and they're constantly whispering in their ears. You need to be the people that your children trust. Nobody else. Yeah, Xanth, we're not talking about that tonight. We've tried to stay off that topic tonight just for a change. That's very kind of you, Axiom Kerr. Really appreciate your support here tonight, and you've made some really good comments. Thank you so much for joining us. Mike in Colchester suggest everyone plays the Young Ones box set, then ask, what have I learned from this? You've put joke there. I think that'd be an excellent way to teach children right from wrong. Just don't be Rick. No, don't be Vivian. He's the violent one. Johnny is asking, or saying he's convinced now that we should just all pitch in our sofa money and buy our own island somewhere. What do we think of that? That would kind of be brilliant.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's last resort, though. There are other options for us before we get to that point, but it's good to have a plan B. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it, Will? We must teach children how to avoid bad and dangerous things without having to expose them to every single detail. That makes it tough. I think again, it's trust, isn't it? If your children trust you, they will accept what you tell them. The problem is, again, this comes back to what we were talking about earlier. Generations of children have been taught to trust authority, and we've allowed it. And I think this is one of the reasons, maybe a big reason why we're in the mess we're in. What do you think about trusting authority? And look how authority has turned out to be very untrustworthy indeed. How do we turn that around, Andrew?
Well, I think it comes down to being able to think for yourself and question things. Like if somebody tells you to do something, your immediate thought shouldn't be, okay, it should be, all right, and does this align with my values? Does this make sense? If somebody's telling you to get out of a burning building, yes, that makes sense. But if somebody's telling you to, do some of the things that we're being told to do, recently. I think you might want to question it a bit.
I like that train of thought, because ultimately it comes down to, is what I'm being asked to do beneficial, or is it going to harm me? That might be a good way to get your children to change their mindset. Is this going to harm? Then again, children have been convinced that things that are actually harmful are not. So again, it comes back to recognizing propaganda. It comes back to recognizing when someone is being truthful with you. And if you don't have the kind of relationship where you lie to your kids, and hopefully no one does, except maybe a couple of things I'm not going to mention in case any kids are listening, but certain times a year. If you never lie to how do you teach your children to determine lies from truth? I mean, many of us are pretty rubbish at it ourselves. How do we, even if you've got a close group of friends, how do you know who is trustworthy? Or at least who tells the truth versus those who lie? How do you determine these things? How can we ask our children to understand these things if we haven't nailed it ourselves? Because it really does come down to trust. These communities before were always based on trust. So how do we rebuild that trust? That might be the actual question that needs answering. Because I think if we can answer that question, a lot of other problems would be resolved immediately. It's a tricky one, then, isn't it? See what the chat have got to say. What do we think, chat, about trust? How do we equip our children with the ability to learn who can be trusted? Who can be trusted? Yes, I'm English, I promise. Who can be trusted and who can't? When we are struggling with this ourselves. Just looking through the chat now. Mr. 262 says, in the past we were taught to avoid certain activities, but now the prevailing idea seems to be just try it and see you might like it. The whole YOLO attitude is nihilistic and destructive. Yes, you only live once. I don't know. You only live once, I think, is actually correct. This YOLO thing, however, has corrupted it. When we say try it, you might like it. When we say it, certainly, we're talking about, learning a skill, learning a trade. It's difficult. These are really difficult questions, and certainly something we're going to revisit. Trust in yourself. Would teach children to trust their own instincts might be an idea. Yeah, teaching children to trust their own instincts. I mean, us trusting our own instincts is the reason why we're here and we're not lying in hospital. So it's very important that I think we should rely on our senses a lot more. Certainly, since lockdown, I've started actually checking food, using my senses to see if food is off. I don't go by dates anymore. The trust thing comes from outdoor play and activities, life skills and stuff, says David. Yet spending time with your children certainly will engender a massive trust bond between you. A massive trust bond. I think your children need to understand that they can absolutely trust you with anything. And I think it's really important that we do that. This all changes with the next generation. And if we're clever, we'll get out in front of it. We're definitely going to carry this on, but we have been on for nearly an hour and 40 minutes, and I think I'm starting to fade. Andrew, you're fading, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long day. We will definitely pick this up next week because I think this is an important question. And I'd really like to see if anyone would like to join us on the show and chat about this. And we're not asking for people to be experts. We just want to hear your opinions. And see See how you feel about the things we've discussed. And and just talk about the things you want to talk about. Thank you, everyone who has joined us this evening. For those of you who have contributed on DLive, thank you very, very much. We're not really using DLive anymore, and we would much rather you kept your lemons and diamonds and things. Invest that money in yourself is the message. Invest it in yourself. Remember, you do not have to pay to get a comment read out on this channel. If you've got something interesting to say, we will definitely cover it. Unless, of course, I'm 20 minutes behind and I've had to skip. So apologies for that. We want someone to ramble, English bird. Honestly, just get up here and have your say. That this community is about everyone. It's not just about the people talking. It's everyone. And everyone has valid points of view, and we'd love to hear them all. So maybe we'll do an open mic next Friday. We'll see what Jordan's got to say when he returns. But yes, thank you all. Have a fantastic weekend. Be safe. Be productive. Remember, we working together will make things better. And things are not as bad as they appear. Don't give in to the media propaganda. It's designed to make you stop trying. We're better than that. So stay safe. Great weekend. And we'll see you next week. Take care all.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you very much. And thank you very much to Andrew. Big thank you to Andrew and for Boudica for joining us. And we'll see you Friday. Bye for now.
Good night.